In August 1969, over 2 consecutive nights in Los Angeles, 7 people were violently killed. The brutality of these crimes reached a national audience and signaled the end of the innocence associated with the 1960s counterculture. The central paradox of the case lies in the perpetrator's leadership. The man held responsible for the massacres, Charles Manson, was not present during the first night of killings and carried no weapon during the second. This created a significant legal hurdle. Our justice system typically requires physical evidence, like a fingerprint or a DNA match on a weapon, to convict a mastermind of first-degree murder. Here, there were no physical ties between Manson and the fatal blows. To bridge that gap, prosecutors relied on the theory of vicarious liability. They argued that Manson's followers were functionally, psychologically loaded guns, tools that were as lethal as any physical blade. Manson did not need to swing a machete himself. He had spent years weaponizing the minds of his followers, turning them into direct extensions of his own will. Manson's methodology relied on the specific social climate of late 1960s California. Tens of thousands of runaways and transient youths had flooded into the state, many of them searching for a family structure they lacked at home. He gathered these individuals at the Spawn Movie Ranch, a remote compound in the Santa Susana Mountains. This geographic isolation allowed Manson to monitor every interaction and control the information his followers received. To cement his control, Manson employed mandated sleep deprivation and heavy, guided doses of LSD. These rituals were designed to dissolve personal identity and force what Manson called a death of ego, leaving his followers entirely susceptible to his commands. He filled that void with Helter Skelter, an apocalyptic prophecy of a coming race war he claimed was hidden in the lyrics of the Beatles. This doctrine served as the specific ideological trigger for the violence. By the summer of 1969, Manson had forged these ordinary teenagers into unquestioning weapons, physically detached from society and ready for deployment. On the night of August 8th, Manson gave the order to go to 10050 Cielo Drive and destroy everyone inside. He sent Linda Kasabian along to serve as the getaway driver and lookout. The group severed the telephone lines to isolate the estate before encountering their first victim. Tex Watson shot 18-year-old Stephen Parent 4 times in his car before the intruders even reached the front door. Inside the home, the killers murdered Jay Sebring, Abigail Folger, and Wojtek Frykowski. The final victim was Sharon Tate, who was 8.5 months pregnant. The killers staged the scene for maximum impact. They inflicted dozens of stab wounds, far more than necessary to kill, and used Sharon Tate's blood to write the word pig on the front door. This pattern of expressive homicide served as a programmed performance. This was the specific theatricality Manson believed would panic the public and spark the racial conflict he desired. Manson was dissatisfied with the results of the first night, complaining that the killings had been too messy. For the following evening, he changed his tactics. On August 10th, Manson personally accompanied the group to the home of Leno and Rosemary LaBianca. This is where the legal theory of his involvement becomes concrete. Manson entered the home first, held the couple at gunpoint, and tied their hands with leather thongs before leaving the property. Only after he had personally subdued the victims did he order Watson, Patricia Krenwinkel, and Leslie Van Houten inside to complete the murders. By physically subduing and tying the victims, Manson moved into the role of a direct conspirator. He had transitioned from an ideological leader in the desert to an active participant on the ground. Initially, the LAPD failed to see the connection between the 2 nights. The cases were handled by separate, siloed divisions that were pursuing entirely different theories, from drug deals to random robberies. This diagram illustrates the first major forensic link. Ballistics experts compared test-fired bullets from a revolver found at Spawn Ranch to the rounds recovered from Stephen Parent's body, confirming they came from the same weapon. Secondary physical evidence soon followed. Investigators recovered Patricia Krenwinkel's fingerprints from a doorframe at the Tate residence, and Leslie Van Houten's prints from a cabinet in the LaBianca home. While jailed on an unrelated charge, Susan Atkins described the Tate murders to her cellmates in vivid detail. She shared specifics about the scene, including the rope and the staging, that had never been made public. Her statements led investigators to Linda Kasabian. In exchange for immunity, Kasabian provided the definitive narrative that mapped Manson's specific orders to the physical actions of the killers. The proof was now twofold. The forensic evidence placed the followers at the scenes, while the witness testimony legally tied the killers to Manson. Prosecutor Vincent Bugliosi used these links to argue that Manson's psychological control was absolute. He contended that Manson's commands served as the functional equivalent of him being physically present at every murder. The 9-month trial provided a real-time demonstration of that control. The female defendants shaved their heads and carved X's into their foreheads in synchronization with Manson, signaling their continued devotion to the jury. The jury returned guilty verdicts for first-degree murder and conspiracy for every defendant. The legal outcome dismantled the family and prompted residents across Los Angeles to install deadbolts and security systems, ending an era of open-door communal living. The case remains a touchstone in criminal law, a proof that under extreme coercion, the human mind can be rewritten